Hello, everyone, and welcome back to TV Geek Studios. We are your hosts, me, Joel, and the man, the myth, and the legend, Sebastian Clark. And today on the pod, we're going to be discussing the current state of budget EVs in the U.S. market. We're going to be talking about some of the cheapest options today. And if you can wait, some of the cheapest options that are coming soon. So stay tuned as we go through the pros, cons of each model and how they stack up against each other. All right, we're back. So for starters, let's talk about what you can actually buy today. And up first, we're going to talk about the cheapest new EV you can find in America. And that, of course, is one of Sebastian's favorites because he owns one. That's the 2027 Chevy Bolt. Not a 2027, but he owns a Chevy Bolt. Sebastian, tell us about this one.
Yeah, so the 2027 Chevy Bolt. So reintroduced for the 2027 model year, GM brought back a fan favorite with the Chevy Bolt. The 2027 model keeps a lot of what everyone loved about the previous generations and brings an updated powertrain and interior to go with it. So let's start by just saying, some of the pros for this vehicle. So for the 2027 year, you get an all-new battery pack, which is now an LFP pack that has 3 times faster DC fast charging compared to the outgoing model, now at 150 kilowatt peak versus the 50 of the outgoing car. And since this is a 65 kilowatt hour battery pack, it has an EPA estimated range of 262 miles. And GM claims a 10 to 80 time of 25 minutes when DC charging through the vehicle's native NACS ports. Again, 25 minutes. In my Bolt, that's like an hour to do 10 to 80. Also, this new Bolt is vehicle to home capable, meaning you can use it to power your home or other devices. And I think this is like the cheapest vehicle you can get that has that capability as well. On the interior, you get an updated, larger Android Automotive-powered infotainment system. There's available Super Cruise. You have more standard safety features compared to the outgoing car, such as adaptive cruise, blind spot monitoring, etc. And even though it's a compact car, it does make a pretty decent use of its space, although the compact car can be a bit of a con that we'll talk about here later. And just, for 28 grand, it's hard to beat, right?
Agree.
So, but since we're talking interior, that is one area that has some of the biggest cons that have come up from the Bolt faithful. And the biggest one is, so like I mentioned, it has a brand new updated infotainment system, Android Automotive, all the stuff can be run natively on it. But because GM wants you to buy OnStar and wants you to pay for a subscription, you don't get Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which for many people makes this thing a non-starter.
It's a deal breaker for a lot of people, yes.
And the other biggest con for the new Bolt is availability. GM has previously stated that this will be a limited run model, and GM hasn't explicitly, said how many Bolts they're going to make. It's assumed it's going to be a 1 model year vehicle. The other con is just, if you look at sizing, right? This is a compact hatchback crossover thing. And while the Bolt is fairly spacious and makes good use of the space it has, it is still an overall small car. So if you don't want a small car, this isn't the vehicle for you. But like I mentioned, this is currently the cheapest new EV in the United States with a starting price of $28,595 before destination or $29,990 after.
Yep. And I saw that Coxo members, they're doing a 2.5% financing for, was it, I think 60 or 72 months on this. So 60 months. So not bad. So, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the biggest gripe I have about the Bolt is that we know it's not staying around. They made it quite clear when we were at the event. This is a limited time offer, but you can't find them everywhere. I think we maybe seen 3 or 4 on the lots of our dealerships here. Mm-hmm. I know the one dealership here where I live still has one on the lot, but the other ones, they either haven't gotten them in, or when they've gotten them in, they've sold
instantly.
So, yeah. Sold instantly. So yeah, but I don't know if they're just having trouble getting them out or they're doing it kind of on purpose. So yeah.
Right.
Moving on to the second cheapest EV currently available in the US, and that is the 2026 Nissan Leaf. So the new 3rd generation Nissan Leaf was introduced for the 2026 model year, and it is an absolutely huge change from the previous generation. So gone are the tiny battery packs, Gone is the CHAdeMO charging, and gone is the weirdly high pricing. I think when we looked at these Sebastian, it was the high 40s, wasn't it? Like 47, 48? Yeah. So let's go through and tell us what makes the new Leaf great and maybe some things we might need to still watch out for.
Yeah, so on the new Leaf, for starters, the biggest improvement is the available range. So the new base model Leaf, which is the S Plus, has 303 miles of EPA rated range. As you move up through the trims, you do lose range. The middle trim has 288 miles of range, and the Platinum Plus, which is your top of the line model, is down to 259 miles. But as for charging, like we said, gone is CHAdeMO. RIP,
Yep.
you aren't missed. The new Leaf features a NACS port for DC charging and can charge at speeds of up to 150 kilowatts, like the Bolt, but a 10 to 80 time of 35 minutes, which is 10 minutes more than the Bolt, but it also has a 10 kilowatt hour larger battery pack. So this has a 75 kilowatt hour pack instead of 65 like we saw on the Bolt. On the interior, you get a new Android Automotive base setup with wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. You also get Nissan's Pro Pilot Assist feature standard, which include adaptive cruise, blind spot monitoring, and lane centering. The interior also just gets an overall just glow up and looks. The old Leaf was very much a mid, early teens interior from Nissan. A lot of hard plastic, a lot of hard switches, lots of buttons, and teeny tiny little infotainment.
Gray and white graphics, yes.
Yeah, this just has a much more modern looking space. Interior space is also adequate for a compact hatch crossover vehicle. That said, it is a little more restricted in some areas than the Bolt, for example, because it has that more sloping roofline. But let's talk about some of the cons real quick. So for starters, we're going to talk about charging a little bit. You might have noticed earlier I said it has a NACS port for DC fast charging. Unfortunately, that NACS port can only be used for DC fast charging. To AC charge the vehicle, you have to use a J1772 port that's on the other side of the car, meaning you'll be carrying around multiple adapters to make sure you can charge no matter where you pull up. You're going to need a CCS to NACS adapter, and then a J17 or NACS to J1772 adapter, and all the things. So just keep that in mind. The other big con, just in my opinion, relate to how Nissan has found ways to nickel and dime you as a customer. For example, the base S Plus trim does not have built-in navigation despite running Android Automotive. So they just don't install the Google Maps app on it, which wireless CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, just use the map on your phone. Cool. Mm-hmm. But because it doesn't have native maps and native nav, it also doesn't have native battery preconditioning, which
this is everyone has
is just you should just have. It's an EV, and Nissan has. It looks like when I was on their website for the upcoming model year, they have fixed their sins a little bit. But previously, the S Plus model, the battery heater was an option. Now it's standard. It was one of those things. As wise as an option. It was like $390 to add.
Yeah.
It should just be standard on the car, and it looks like Nissan has listened to people and made it standard because you want the car to work 365 days a year, right? You don't want to have abysmal range or whatever because the battery pack is frozen like a brick, or not able to charge fast because the battery pack is frozen, etc. And just some other things like the base S trim doesn't have heated seats, which is standard on the cheaper Bolt, and it only has 4 speakers and just other little omissions here and there. I want to say the driver's seat only goes forward and back and tilts, no height adjustment unless you go to the next trim level, which again is one of those things. It's like, is it not more expensive to make different parts in this case? I don't know. And all of that to say, how much is it? The base Leaf S Plus starts at $29,990 before a $1,545 destination fee, meaning the final price of the base car with no options is $31,535. So we're about $2,000 higher than the base Bolt, just for comparison. Now, so those are our 2 cheapest options. After this, we do have to jump up in price a bit. The next 3 models all have a starting price of right at or right below $35,000. And I'm going to keep these 3 brief just because they're pretty similar price, but I want to make sure we have some room to talk about the exciting stuff coming soon. So for starters, the 2027 Toyota BZ. First off, Thank you, Toyota. You dropped the 4X for the 2026 model year. It's a much easier model name now. It's not the Busy Forks anymore. It's just Busy.
Busy.
But the 2027 Toyota BZ starts at $34,980. Although at this price, you are getting the version that has the little battery pack with only 236 miles of EPA rated range. That said, this is our first regular sized crossover on the list. The BZ has had some major improvements since launch, but its biggest weaknesses are still just some Toyota quirks, such as it doesn't have built-in route planning or battery preconditioning like the Leaf. The cheaper plastics on the interior that Toyota's pretty known for, like, yes, they'll last longer than you, but they don't feel nice. Charging is now done through a NAX port with an approximately 30-minute 10 to 80 time on the small 57 kilowatt hour pack and around the same amount of time on the big, I think it's 74.7 kilowatt hour battery pack. That said, to get that 74 kilowatt hour battery pack, you're going to spend around almost $5,000 extra just to get the bigger battery pack. That said, that car has over 300 miles of range. But if you don't want to spend $5,000 extra to get the larger battery pack, might I interest you in the 2027 Subaru Uncharted? So the 2027 Uncharted starts at $34,995. If you're keeping track, that's only $15 more than the base BZ. And if you don't need the little bit of extra room the BZ gives you, this is a clear winner in my opinion. The Uncharted is almost identical on the inside to the BZ because they're all on the same family. The Uncharted, CHR, BZ, Solterra, BZ Woodland, and Trailseeker are all largely the same car, just in slightly different form factors, and the interior layout is almost identical between all six of them.
Mm-hmm.
The Uncharted, like I said, is $15 more than the BZ. I want to keep pointing that out. And the Uncharted comes standard with the 74 kilowatt hour battery pack, so you're getting an extra almost 20 kilowatt hours of energy. And because of that, the base front wheel drive model has 308 miles of EPA rated range. For those keeping score, that's almost 70 miles more than the BZ of the same price. And Subaru claims a 10 to 80 time of 28 minutes for this model. So bigger battery, more range, faster charging on paper.
Yep.
Why would you buy the base model BZ versus this?
Yeah, we've seen this.
Know.
We've seen some discrepancies between the two. And I'm not sure what it is, but you think it's kind of like what we see with Kia and Hyundai. You think it would all everything would just be the same. I don't understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
now,
mean, but we've driven this car. We really liked it. So
yeah, other than these clear benefits, though, the car is largely the same as the BZ, which means it has kind of the same unfortunate omissions, some of the same quirks on the inside, some of the same cheap hard plastics, etc. But it does come standard with Subaru's EyeSight, so you get lane centering, you get adaptive cruise and blind spot and all that jazz. And I mean, like we've said previously, and we've done a review of this car if you want to go check it out on our channel, this was a pretty respectable vehicle, especially for someone who's looking at an EV for the first time.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Yep.
And our final currently available EV, and our final one that's at $35,000, is also the oldest vehicle on this list. The Chevy Equinox EV.
OG.
So introduced in its current form for the 2024 model year, although I want to say they announced it back in 2022, but then it got delayed because of everything going on in the world. The base LT trim level starts at $35,000 and features 319 miles of EPA rated range. This is also the largest vehicle on our list, coming in at it's about 6 inches longer than the BZ is. The Equinox features an 85 kilowatt hour battery pack, that same 150 kilowatt peak DC charging speed, and a 10 to 80 time of in the 30 to 35 minute range. The interior features a large 17.7 inch infotainment screen standard running Android Automotive OS. However, like we talked about GM's decision making earlier, you do not get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and for a lot of people, that is a deal breaker. The base Equinox also does lose out on some comfort features. For example, it does not have heated seats standard. The interior is all cloth. The steering wheel is urethane, not leather. It does, etc., just things like that. However, it does come standard with adaptive cruise, blind spot monitoring, and some basic lane keep. And so really the Equinox is, if you need the larger vehicle and you're okay with losing some creature comforts to get the base model, that's $35,000, it's a pretty solid package.
See, I would agree with you. If we're just looking at these three vehicles on paper and what you could get, I think the Equinox is probably the best one for your value because it's going to give you the more range. Yeah, you're going to lose out on that Android Auto and that Apple CarPlay, but for someone like me who doesn't use it that much, that's not a big deal for me. I know you love it. But yeah, so for me personally, if I had to choose out of these three, it probably would be the Equinox. So
Yeah.
but Sebastian, which one would you choose? Curious.
So to me, I feel like the Uncharted has honestly become a really good value.
That's you just
That
like those
said,
cars.
That said, the Equinox does a lot
Yep.
of the EV stuff better than the Uncharted
Yeah,
does.
true.
So while the Uncharted has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it does not have built-in route planning. It does not have on-route battery preconditioning. You can get into the menus if you click 15 times and turn on battery preconditioning manually.
Mm-hmm.
But because it doesn't have route planning, it won't do it for you type situations. And the Equinox has route planning because it has Google Maps built in. It has on-demand and on-route battery preconditioning. You know, it does a lot of the EV stuff better, but I'm bougie. The Uncharted comes standard with heated seats. The Equinox doesn't. You know, things like that. It's like seems like you get more creature comfort with the Uncharted as long as you can handle the smaller size.
Totally agree with you on that. All right, so those are the ones that are out now that you can buy if your dealers have them. But if you're thinking of waiting, maybe this is not the year you're going to get one of those cheap EVs. Maybe you're thinking maybe early next year, the end of next year. We have some other cheaper EV options available. So, Sebastian, you have three of them listed here, I believe, or we have three of them listed here. Tell us about these real quick. Like I said, these are brand new. We don't really know a lot about them, but go ahead and tell us about them.
Yeah, so the first one I'm going to mention has a very narrow market for it, but it is technically the cheapest new EV in America, and that is the Slate pickup truck. So this is soon to be. They're supposed to start delivery sometime late 2026, early 2027, but this is at its starting price, a absolutely bare bones two-door, two-seater pickup truck with 205 miles of range, and it can be yours for $24,950. Now, of course, when I say bare bones, I mean it. We're talking no paint, crank windows, no infotainment system, no speakers, etc. at that price.
No
But you
screen,
do get a
nothing.
5-foot bed. And if you're willing to pay, there are pretty much endless customization options. So if you really want a vehicle that you can just make your own and order exactly how you want it, this is one of the only ways on the market right now you could do that. And like I said, Slate expects deliveries to start late in 2026.
So yeah, I mean, we actually tried to price one of these out. The one we wanted almost got up to about 30,000. Wasn't it about that? 28,000,
It was like
29,000?
29,800
yeah, and
before
we
destination.
spec'd it out. So
And
yeah,
we
I
didn't
don't
even
know.
add that much crazy.
No, I mean, it was just basic stuff that we added. You know, I think we added maybe a color to it too, maybe some different wheels. It wasn't anything crazy. That is true. All right. So still talking about trucks.
Yep.
What's next?
And this is kind of, I feel like this vehicle, as long as it kind of nails the pricing once it launches and its trim levels, whatever, I imagine this is the vehicle that is going to eat Slate's lunch, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Slate has a market. There's a market for people who want absolute bare bones trucks, but in 2026, I don't necessarily believe it's a huge market. And that's where this one comes in. The Ford Fathom. So Ford's upcoming Universal EV is starting out as a mid-size pickup truck. Ford expects this to have a starting price of right under $30,000 after destination charges. While details are still sparse, we do know the truck will be similar in class to the Ford Maverick, and Ford claims it will have more interior space than a Toyota RAV4, which has similar interior space to, say, a Toyota BZ, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Range figures haven't been shared yet either, but Ford has said that they're targeting a 0 to 60 of 4.5 seconds. We would expect that there's going to be probably multiple battery pack options here, with the bigger battery at 300-ish miles of range. I'm going to guess small battery, maybe 230, 240.
I was thinking 229. I don't know why.
There's
229.
I know Ford is playing around with the idea of offering an LFP pack on this, which has, its advantages for price and things like that. But we do know Ford will be offering Blue Cruise standard on the vehicle. Of course, I'm sure there's a subscription component to it, like there is on Blue Cruise vehicles now. And Ford is expecting the truck to be available in early 2027. So, I mean, it really should be any time now that we get all the final details on this vehicle. But this one is interesting. There was a lot of hype when Ford launched the Lightning, right? Especially because when Ford launched the Lightning for like a brief 2 weeks, you could get one for like 35 grand, right?
Yep.
if Ford can launch the Fathom at the price that they are currently anticipating, and they can make it last for more than 2 weeks, I feel like this should, be a no-brainer. The Maverick has turned out to be a very popular vehicle,
Very popular,
and to
yes.
offer basically an electric Maverick, seems like that should go over pretty dang well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is kind of like we said, we've talked about it before with like Rivian and the R2, and we've talked about it with Lucid and what they're getting ready to announce. This could be like a make or break moment for Ford with this vehicle, because if this thing's come out and we're seeing, oh wow, no, it's 38,000, then we got a problem. Or if we're seeing it's 42,000, then we got a problem. Because now we're talking about I can get something a lot nicer than that. But I agree, if you, and I didn't show any pictures of this on the screen because we don't have any. If you go to the Ford Fathom website, it's just a bunch of people outside camping. That's what it is. There's no car there. But some guys skydiving or something. I don't know what it is. So yeah. But yeah, I believe it. I think it, but if you want to know what it looks like, go to your Ford dealership and look at a Maverick. And that's probably going to be the general vicinity or general idea of what it's going to look like. Very similar. I think maybe a little bit bigger, somewhere between the Maverick and maybe the Ranger, maybe a tad bit bigger. But yeah, but you are, out of all the ones we've talked about, this is the one I'm most excited about, because this is the one I could actually see myself down the line getting into, as someone who was a truck owner, a gas truck owner, getting back into an EV truck. This at that price would be great, because we've talked about this before. We don't do truck stuff. Like, yeah, I'll go to occasionally to Lowe's and buy 2x4s and a plank of wood, but that's all I'm doing, or move a refrigerator or throw some bags of mulch in the back. That's pretty much all I'm doing in a truck. So that would be pretty much perfect for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where, when I look at trucks, my aspirational vehicle would be like an R1T, because it has a bed for the occasional things. I don't need to haul around a 5.5 foot or a 6 foot bed all the time. The little 4.5 foot would be more than enough for 99% of what I do in my life. And the R1T is so nice.
Yes, it is. Just a little bit different pricing from that than the Fathom. What we're
A little bit
just
different pricing, but I'm saying that's why I said aspirational. Okay, my aspirational truck.
He's got dreams, people.
I've got dreams, people.
You got to watch our video so Sebastian can get an R1T. All right. And last but not least, we don't want to leave this one out because it's important, because these should be hitting lots pretty soon, I believe. And that is the Kia EV3.
Yeah, so like you said, this is the vehicle we should expect to be available the soonest. I mean, Kia already has the configurator on their website. You can go online and customize and build and do your options. The pricing seems pretty set in stone and should be hitting lots anytime now. With a starting MSRP of $29,890, the base car will have only 221 miles of range. But if you will spend $5,000 more to bump up to the Wind model, you will be able to get 321 miles of range. The EV3 is built on the 400-volt version of the eGMP platform. And just for perspective, because Kia has given us pricing and we can kind of share this. So $29,890 for the base model. But if you want all the stuff, you're going to spend $45,000.
That's the GT, baby.
That's a big gap. I mean, you're talking an extra almost $16,000.
You could have an R2 for that price almost.
You could have an R2 for that price. So it does get a little hairy on the top end. But we do have a whole episode deep dive on the EV3 already out on our channel. So if this is a car that interests you, make sure you check that out, because we go through options and configurations and whatever. I expect the $35,000 one will be the one we see the most of.
Yeah, I mean, even when you look at lots, if you're looking at the screen right now, when you look at lots right now, at like on the EV6s, you don't see a lot of lights on the lot. It's mostly the Wind models that you see with the EV6s. And even when talking about EV9s, it's usually the Wind and the Land are the most two that you see. But with the EV9, I do have the light with the big motor. Sorry, big battery.
The light battery. Yeah. I was about to say, I see a lot of the light long range EV9s. I don't hardly ever see the light short range.
Yeah, I don't see the light short range. I don't think there's a light long range EV6. I think it's the light with the short range. And then you get the Wind with the big battery. So
gotcha.
I can't remember. So yeah. All right, so those are the ones we've talked about today. I'm pretty excited about that. I will tell you this. I am pretty excited about the Kia EV3 as being a Kia owner. It's not one I would buy, but I'm just excited that it's coming out. All right, so there you have it. We've talked about all these cars today. So Sebastian, kind of wrap it up for us.
Yeah, so looking across the board, the narrative that electric vehicles are strictly luxury items, which is something we've heard time and time again. And honestly, I understand for a lot of people, $30,000 is a lot of money for a car.
Mhm.
But in 2026, $30,000 isn't a ton of money anymore for a new car. I want to say the average transaction price currently is like 50 grand.
Yep.
Um, and as we're seeing, if you're willing to wait and just, ride it a little longer, they're getting cheaper. There are beginning to be more and more cheap models.
Mhm. And I totally agree. So if you need a car like today, you have the 2027 Bolt EV, you have the 2026 Nissan Leaf, which are proving that has gotten some modern range. They've modernized these cars from their original models. They all have native NACS charging, practical tech that you're going to get for around $30,000. If you need a little more room, a little more range, you get the Equinox EV, Subaru Uncharted. It'll kind of give you that full size capability without getting across that $35,000 mark.
Yeah, and if you can hold out for just a little bit, it gets pretty interesting, in the upcoming market. You have the ultra utilitarian workhorse like the Slate Truck, or some pretty impressive design decisions in the EV3, and Ford doing the Fathom, which at least on paper currently sounds like it should knock it out of the park, assuming that nothing big happens between now and the beginning of 2027. It seems like this under $30,000 range is about to get really competitive, which is super exciting.
Totally agree. I kind of agree with you about the Kia EV3 too, because Kia just makes really cool looking cars, both interior and exterior. So, really excited about that. But honestly, what we want to do is we want to hear from you down in the comments. So, if you had 30K to spend today, are you buying a Bolt? Are you buying a Leaf? Or maybe you're holding out for the EV3 coming soon, the Fathom or the Slate? Or we just want to know which one you would pick.
Yeah. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that like button, give us a subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Although I don't even know if that does anything on YouTube anymore. If you're hearing this on your audio platforms, hi, thank you for listening. Make sure you give us a comment, a like, a thumbs up, a heart, whatever your platform uses.
I
They're
think it's a
all a little
follow.
different, but whatever
Yep.
you do, it does help the show grow. So long, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.